I get Erev Shabbos, everybody. Welcome to Jerry's Parsha Ponderings, renamed Jerry's Corona Contemplations during this exciting time. So we will be discussing this week Parshas Vayikra, Rosh Chodesh, Nissan, and Corona in general, because it's what's on everybody's mind. I was in bidud, in isolation for a couple of weeks, having been exposed, and got out of jail this week. It was actually nice to breathe fresh air. Everyone's going through just a really crazy time right now, and we're all gonna make it through. We're gonna get to the other side of this thing. So let's see what the Torah has to tell us. Sefer Vayikra, a new Sefer. We're starting Baruch Shechianu v'kimanu v'gianu lazman hazeh to start learning Sefer Vayikra. Sefer Vayikra is about sacrifice. It's about the sacrifices. It's about bringing karbono to Hashem, self-sacrifice. Why did we bring sacrifices? We brought sacrifices because it was brought instead of us. That's why we brought a sacrifice. We brought a karban chatas if we sinned. We brought an asham. We brought an oila v'yared. We brought the tamid. The karban tamid was on the mizbeach every day, in the morning, in the afternoon. It was instead of davening. Today we daven. But we brought the sacrifices because we were showing Hashem, that we're taking from our livelihood and giving it to Him. Remember, we were an agrarian society, and we still eat meat, right? That's how we live. We brought a karban mincha. What's a karban mincha? The karban mincha was grain. We eat grain and we eat meat. This is what sustains us. This is why we bring karbanos, and why we will one day, Be'ezrat Hashem, bring karbanot again. In the meantime, we daven, and I imagine we'll still daven. There are opinions that by a shlishi, maybe there won't be karbanot, maybe it'll just be a shul. We don't know. But what we do know is that karbanot were brought instead of us, that we realized that we had done something wrong, and instead of us bringing ourselves as a karban, because we don't do human sacrifice, God forbid, it was what the forefathers railed against, right? But we did bring karbanot. And when you bring a karban, it's shechted, and it's skinned, and it's put on the mizbeach, and you see the blood and the inner workings of the animal, and you are made to remember that our life, our very life, is given by Hashem. And we brought a sacrifice of our own sustenance to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to show that we appreciate what He does for us, that He gives us life, and that everything that we have is only because He wills it. So now we are asked to make a sacrifice of ourselves. We can't go outside. We can't mingle with other people. It's hard to go shopping, if you even can. Those that are elderly and have any sort of immune deficiency. I'm touching my face. See, I shouldn't even be touching my face. Have a very, very difficult time. My wife Ruchi has asthma. She has to be extremely careful. I went to the grocery today to buy some stuff for Pesach, gloves, masks. It's a big sacrifice, and we're asked to do that. But we do this because we're recognizing that Hashem is in charge. And in the Mikdash, where the sacrifices were brought, it was so important that the Kohanim constantly washed their hands and their feet, and there was a mikvah, and they were constantly cleaning, and everything had to constantly be cleaned after the sacrifices. Very different if you've seen the videos of the wet markets in Wuhan, China. Not exactly the same thing, right? But it was so important that everything was kept clean and that the Kohanim were constantly washing their hands. How many times in Sefer Vayikra does it says, V'rachatzu yedehem v'ragleim? Read Parshat Acharei Mos. How many times did the Kohen wash? And we realize now how important cleanliness and hygiene is. That's otherwise, what comes? The virus, death. Hashem could turn the world upside down with something that would fit on the tip. Look, here, a paper clip up here. You wouldn't even see it. It's microscopic. Hashem could make something that you can't even see, and it could turn the whole world upside down. And we're told how much we have to sacrifice of ourselves in order to rid ourselves of this virus, and how we have to maintain constant hygiene. Baruch Hashem, we're in Chodesh Nissan, the time of Geula. What's the symbol of Chodesh Nissan in the zodiac? The Aries, the ram, reminds us of the Karban Pesach, even though it's a lamb, it's not a ram, but okay, they're somewhat related. But it's the reason why the symbol of the Taleh is the symbol of Nissan. Now, what did we do in Nissan? On the 10th day of Nissan, we took the Karban Pesach, tied it to the bedpost, and it remained in quarantine. Look at that. It remained in quarantine till the 14th, at which time it was brought to the Beit HaMikdash, shechted, and we had the Karban Pesach. We have to remember all these little reminders. We spoke last week about the blood on the doorpost and how on Pesach night you couldn't go outside because the mashches was in the street. We see now the mashches is in the street. We have to remember how we're getting so many real-life lessons about what it is, what they went through in Mitzrayim. They had to shech the Karban Pesach, the god of Egypt, in the middle of the street, and then they couldn't go outside because the mashchit was out there and killing people left and right. We have to relate to this. And even with the Karban Pesach, how it was kept in quarantine for days before it was brought to the Beit HaMikdash. In Nissan, we make the Birchat HaIlanot. We go and we say the blessing on the trees as they're blooming in the new fruit. It's a time of renewal, a time of rebirth. Look at what's going on around us, Rabbosai. The streets are empty. It's almost as if Hashem is rebooting the world. Hashem hit the Control-Alt-Delete. Right? This is a time of rebirth. Nissan is the time of deliverance. We went out of Egypt. We went out of slavery. Now we have to go out of ourselves. We have to take this time of isolation and think, do a cheshbon hanefesh, mafashfesh b'masav, think about who we are and what we're doing. We have to create like a self-renewal for Nissan, a completely new time, a new year, because even though we count the years from Tishrei, right, we still consider Chodesh Nissan as the HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chadashim. It's a time of renewal. And all of us have to take this time and think about who we are, and are we doing the best that we can be doing. Nissan is a time, as it says, when a new light is brought to the world. And as we get through Pesach, hopefully when we're on the other side of Pesach, we'll also be on the other side of this virus, and the world can go back to some sort of normal. Although I strongly suspect, just like after 9/11, things are never going to quite be the way they were. We're going to be thinking a lot more about social distancing, if you will, and how we relate one to another, and just in general, how we interact with other people after having been in this period of isolation and indeed renewal. So it's springtime, the trees are blooming, things are changing, there's a rebirth going on, And Be'ezrat Hashem, there will indeed be a rebirth to the world after this time of isolation. So I'd like to say Mazel Tov again to my children Danny and Asaf. We have a new grandson. The Brit was yesterday. There were very few people there, less than a minyan, and yet we still did everything via Zoom in this age of technology. Baruch Hashem, we were able to experience the Brit. Those of us who were there and those of us that were joining us via the web, it was pretty cool. And Vayikra, this week's parsha, but Vayikra Shemo b'Yisrael, Nadav Menachem, named after my beloved father-in-law, Menachem Goldman, Zechrona Levracha, a Gibar b'Yisrael who fought in the 1948 war, a Holocaust survivor, came to Eretz Yisrael and fought for the liberation of Medinat Yisrael. And may he taika be zaycha, to be a credit to his parents, to his family, and to all of the Am Yisrael. May we be zaycha lagadloi, l'torah, l'chuppah, l'masim tovim. Asaf and Danny, Mazel Tov to you, and may you see only nachas from Nadav Menachem, and may we all. Just to harken back on something we said last week, in the Mikdash, and for the next number of weeks, that's all we're going to be reading about is the Karbanot and the Mikdash. Yet, even in the building of the Mikdash, V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, Shabbos came before everything. Yes, there were certain things that were allowed in the Mikdash on Shabbat. The Shvut was the mutar in the Mikdash, but even in the building of the Mikdash, Shabbos always came first. And remember, sometimes the mitzvah is lashevet. And we are in that time right now. It's not to go out, not to do. The mitzvah is not to do. It's to sit and be calm and carry on. And remember that Hashem is in control of everything. Shabbos hi bakara bracha. We don't roll on Shabbos, and we can't roll again this Shabbos. You know why? Because the bowling alleys are closed. And so are the clubs. And so are the movie theaters. And everything is closed. So enjoy Shabbos. Be like Walter. Don't roll on Shabbos. Stay home. Stay with your family. Spend time. Think about Hashem. Say an extra Dvar Torah. If you're not the most Shomer Shabbos person in the world, do one less malacha this week. Spend time with the family. Don't roll on Shabbos. Shabbos hi makara bracha. Thank you for joining us. Have an absolutely wonderful, peaceful, calm, and safe Shabbos. See you back here next week. Thanks for joining us. Shabbat Shalom.